Be live momentarily. There we are. Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the BAMF podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty. And with us today is Mr. Dan Abnett, comic book luminary. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
I thank you very much for stopping by about once a year and giving us kind of a pretense patina of respectability. We really appreciate that.
Oh, is that what I'm doing? Okay.
Yeah, basically. We really do appreciate it. Alice Ping is one of our co-hosts. Hey, Alice.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Alice. And we've got Walt Billiard. How you doing, Walt?
I'm just going to sit here like a quivering fanboy.
That is because Walt is a huge Valiant fan who's always proselytizing about the greatness of Valiant Comics. And Dan, this is a perfect segue because you've got a great big Valiant event you're writing for right now, correct?
Correct. Yeah. But I'm very excited about it. I have to say, I am a huge Valiant fan as well. I mean, I'm a huge comic fan, full stop. So I love it when I get to work with any of the big companies. It's always enjoyable to play in their universes and use their characters and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've worked for Valiant a long time ago. Dare I say it, probably in the late 90s or early noughties. That's goodness me, that dates me hugely. One of the things I like about Valiant is they have a very, very specific universe that is constructed quite deliberately to be unlike other comic universes, which I think is great. There is a degree of sort of a higher degree, I think, of sort of realism, which I think is interesting, and I think they've done that very deliberately from the outset to differentiate themselves from, say, the DCU and the Marvel Universe, which are great and do their own thing so well. Why try and duplicate that? Why not try and do something different? So, love the universe, love the characters. Been away from it for a long time, and basically got invited. That I was invited in to work on what might be regarded as the future end of their universe. So they have, in their infinite wisdom, or perhaps foolishness, put me in charge of writing Fallen World, which is the next big future event, which follows on from was it 4001 AD, and follows a character. So I'm playing with characters like Ray, obviously, and the Eternal Warrior, and the other characters that are in that milieu. And there is obviously, whilst the world is very carefully constructed, and I'm following on from a great runs of comics set in that setting. There is also freedom, of course, because I'm not necessarily bashing into other books that are being published in a sort of contemporary setting. So I have a degree. I guess they pulled me into to work on it wearing my science fiction writer's hat about inventing this thing.
It must be nice not to have to worry about working around other big events the way you do at Marvel and DC.
Yeah, I mean that in itself can always be great fun, but there are always those surprises when you discover that one of your companion books has killed off a character that you had, whatever. There's always those sort of processes of negotiation and careful diplomacy to make sure everything fits together, and that's one of the reasons I think a great event at, say, DC is so enjoyable, because it all does fit together. With this event, we're very much sort of striking out into new territory. Without, as I put it, colliding with other books and ruining what they're doing.
So just to set it up for our readers who might not be conversant, this is a sequel to 4002 AD, which was the big 2016 Valiant event.
Yes.
And in that, Ray saved New Japan from a tyrannical AI. And in this one, he's... they're rebuilding after that big conflict, and he's facing off against Bloodshot. Is that what's going on?
Yes, in a nutshell, it's what had been done so effectively in the previous event, and indeed the Ray comic is the idea that in this future there is New Japan, this enormous orbital world, almost a paradise run by Father, the artificial intelligence that has looked after this, and it's completely separated from the world that we know it, and the world that we know it has then evolved. I'm not going to say literally post-apocalypse, but it is in a very changed place and has been sort of left to run wild ever since. And it is discovered in the course of the previous events that the Father is not as benign as everybody thought, and that the New Japan is sort of a dystopia in disguise, that people think they've got these wonderful lives, but actually they are very controlled. And it ended with this sort of insurrection, which, although it ended the threat of Father, it crashed the satellite, and the sectors of New Japan fell onto the Earth, so that everybody who survived is now trying to rebuild lives and learn how to survive in a non-computer controlled environment on what is essentially a bizarrely wild Earth, and that is the starting point for what we're doing. And obviously, you know, hilarity ensues and various threats arise, and that's what the story is about.
Now, when Rai comes treading the earth under his feet, will Earth have all the different levels like they used to have in the 4000 series comics? How each level represented a different year in Earth's development?
To a certain extent, but we're also sort of spreading out sort of horizontally from that, because obviously we've now got different environments of a world that hasn't been fully explored in any detail. So we're doing some world building. There are some big surprises and interesting ideas lurking here in this territory. But also they've sort of brought bits of a world down with them. Each of these sectors of New Japan, some of them are comparatively speaking intact. So you've got things there that are the sort of mini worlds in themselves, and they've got to interact with the world around them, and also with the populations that suddenly find a bit of New Japan falling into their backyard and going, we don't really want this here, because it's upsetting everything that we understand about the way the world works. And New Japan itself has also given rise to a lot of sort of very fundamental sort of existential beliefs on Earth, people looking up for generations and seeing this heaven that they can't access, and what does it mean, and will it come and deliver them, and can they be part of it, and this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of cultural levels, there are a lot of literal levels, and there are a lot of environments, and there's this great overspill. There's the wild technologies and elements left over that have been surviving on Earth for the last however how long, and also technologies and devices and processes and creatures that have escaped from New Japan into this world. So it's in the best way, it's sort of a world where almost anything can happen. You know, I've been testing my imagination and thinking, what can we put in here that is truly unexpected and wonderful, but also isn't going to make people go, well, I just don't believe that for a moment. You know, hitting that very careful balance between those two things.
I love how you. Oh, go ahead, Walt.
Nope, please. I was just going to say, right on.
I just want to bring up that for the viewers, if they didn't catch it, I love that you said that you were playing these characters, because you're talking to a group of gamers here, and a lot of writers, they talk about writing the character, but I think there is an extra dimension from you because you are actively playing these characters and you're immersing yourself that much more. I also did have a question for you, which is for those people, the viewers out there that want to get into Valiant Comics but haven't actually started yet. Comic books can be overwhelming. Do you have a specific arc you would recommend people starting with if they're brand new and want to jump into Valiant Comics?
Well, that's first of all, thank you for the compliment. I think my use of the word playing them is sort of predates the idea of both comics and games. That is to say, as a writer, generally, I like to think myself into characters and try and work out how they're going to work. And it's almost like taking on a role in a play. And that serves me well. I always feel, I'm sure other writers do it. Gosh, I've got doorbells and phone calls ringing all over the place. We're going to ignore all of those things. It'll go away in a minute. This is so professional. This is the glamorous life that we were talking about, isn't it? Yeah.
We appreciate
you're just so popular.
Yeah, I am so popular. Hang on, let me see if I can just turn that off. Hang on. I'm just going to step away from the screen.
We don't judge. And we get to see, let's see, Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger poster, which is fantastic.
Here is a rare glimpse into a writer's workspace.
Yes. Lacking a writer. You see, that's what writers' workspaces usually look like, is there is a writer's workspace with no writer in it because they're off making tea or thinking about something else. In this case, answering the front door. Yeah, it used to have a much better view because I've reorientated my desk, so I've got more daylight. So there's fewer interesting things behind me. You should see what's behind the screen. Honestly, it's.
Do you have a life-sized Vin Diesel Bloodshot figure somewhere in there?
Not yet, but obviously there's room, so you know.
You can still walk around in the room, so therefore there's clearly enough room for more stuff.
There is, yes, yeah. In fact, my room was more crowded until I did it out. But I actually I am a fearful pacer. That is to say, when I'm thinking, I like to get out of my desk and march up and down. And there wasn't enough room to do that. I was just falling over stormtroopers and bumping into whatever. And so I cleared myself some pacing space so I can think more effectively. Which actually ties back in, Alice, to your question about, or your comment about playing it, because sometimes it is literally a case of sort of thinking myself into, I'm pacing up and down, thinking my way into that character, and that serves me well with comics, certainly with novels, and when I'm writing games, which of course I do, you know, when I'm not doing those other things, I think about it literally in terms of what the performance is going to be like of a character in a game, in something like Alien Isolation or whatever, what the character is going to be like and how that's going to come across to the gamer, and how it's going to connect with the way the gamer is affecting. I don't pretend to know a great deal about games because I'm often hired for my storytelling ability with my added complete ignorance of games. But it is something that I try and do. I think anybody who's reading something or playing something, whatever it is, or watching a TV show, wants to engage with those characters and feel that they're as real as possible. So I tend to believe them. And sometimes I find that characters, particularly in novels, but characters take on a life of their own and sort of determine what they're going to say next. And sometimes take the stories in directions that I'm not anticipating. And I've heard writers talk about this phenomena. I mean, I'm talking about proper writers, not, you know, it's not some kind of comic hack. I'm talking about, Stephen King will talk about writing a novel and not knowing where it's going because the characters will lead him somewhere and they'll talk to him and you go, all right, that's a great story. But it has now happened to me and on a number of different occasions where characters I don't really remember deliberately creating them. They've just turned up in a narrative, in a comic or a novel, and they've taken charge, and the book's gone off in a completely different direction than I was expecting because they're sort of determining the way to do that. And I always think that's an incredibly good sign of, well, it's one of two things. It's either you're telling a good story because the story is leading you along, and I think that as a creator, as an author, that's a really good thing to have going on, or it's a sign of incipient madness, which is probably more likely in my case, that they're talking to me. They're all talking to me. I can hear their voices now. I don't know. As for where to jump on, I remember the other part of your actual question there. Sorry. As to where to jump on, I honestly think that the best thing that a new reader can do when it comes to discovering comics for the first time or discovering a particular publisher or whatever is simply go into a comic shop and look at what appeals. And maybe talk to the comic shop guys and girls and say, what do you recommend? What's a good place? And they'll say, oh, Bloodshot's a great book, and you should start there, or whatever like that. I think that kind of word of mouth guidance, but also the response, a lot of effort in a comic company goes into making the covers look cool. So if you see a cover that looks cool and is jumping off the stands and going, read me, read me, read me, read it. And when I started reading comics, which was during the early Ice Ages, before there really were comics, but I'll tell you about the exciting life I led about them. But when I started reading comics, we got them over here in the UK. Marvel comics particularly were republished in black and white weekly form, anthologized. So you buy a weekly comic and it would have 6 pages of Spider-Man reprint and 6 pages of the Avengers and 6 pages of Doctor Strange. You got bits of stuff. The American monthly issues broken down into something that resembled a UK comic format, and there was never a beginning, a middle, or an end of a story, and I didn't care. I didn't understand initially everything that was going on because they were so sort of chopped about. But I loved it, and I kept reading, and I would either learn or I would fill in the gaps myself until it all made sense. And I think that was for me a great grounding in storytelling invention. But I think people maybe these days are concerned about not understanding enough. It's like tuning into if there's a long-running soap opera that you've never watched on the TV and you fancy giving it a go, you will not understand who the people are the first time you watch it, and you're not going to go back and watch the previous 1,000 episodes to catch up. You'll just get the hang of it, and I think that's that great thing about the way ongoing comics work. Having said all of that, Fallen World. Obviously, there's some great stuff. If you read Fallen World, I try, as I almost always do, to explain as much as you need to know as a new reader, new to the Valiant universe, new to these characters, as much as you need to know to get you off the ground so you can understand what's going on. And then in that story, if you enjoy that story, and I really hope you will, and I think you will, you can follow on from there and read more things, but you can also go back and pick up the trades of the previous event and previous books and build up your knowledge of it if it's a universe that you enjoy. I think people who aren't necessarily, how can we put it, comic literate, they're not used to going into comic book shops and reading stuff, are just overwhelmed by the choice and nervous about making the wrong choice. And the answer is there is no wrong choice. If you try something and you don't like it, don't read it. Read something else. If you like that, read it. If you don't, try something else. You know, that's the way to do it. And us, you know, the creative people involved in this profession are doing our damnedest to produce something that we hope will engage you and make you want to read it. And if you read it, we're doing our job properly. So there is I think huge freedom, and it's liberating, and you can find things you weren't expecting. And that was a mightily long-winded answer that I'm sorry about.
It was a great answer. Thank you.
Just to get the plug in there, if someone's wanting to check out Fallen World, it looks like the first issue comes out May 1st. Is that right?
I believe it is May 1st, yes. And we've got a little teaser on Free Comic Book Day as well. So
yes, I was just going to mention that.
Yeah. It's sort of a little sidelong prequel, little taster of what we're doing. And obviously, I've seen what's coming, and I have to say, there's some great stuff. There is some great. I mean, I don't know about the story. I can't vouch for him. I've never heard of the guy, and he's probably crap. But the art is just amazing. One of my favorite. You can't see it because we're orientated this way around. But I work on a very big screen desktop that I'm looking at you right now on, and have done that for years. And obviously, working for American comics, where you're often asked to script once the art's in, or do a dialogue pass, you need to have the plot open and the script you're writing open and the artwork open and jiggling and all that. So I've finally gone to sort of gamer mode, and I've opened up additional screens alongside that I can sit things on here. And it's one of my great pleasures is when I get the lettered copy of the latest issue of whatever it is, Titans or Silencer or whatever. I had Silencer in this morning, and I get it up on screen and I go through it. And obviously I'm going through it with an eye to make sure it all works and pick up any mistakes and do all that proofing stuff. But also it's the first chance to see what it reads like and how exciting it's going to be. And it's always a joy. It's never a disappointment. Sometimes it's a surprise. You go, oh, that's how it is. It's not quite what I envisaged, but that doesn't matter. It's a great interpretation. But the Valiant stuff came in, and I went, oh, I'm looking forward to reading this. I hope it's good. And I sort of sat there and I went, oh my God. I don't think I've seldom been so amazed at what I've seen as the screen opened, and it's a testament to the quality of the art, and also to the professionalism of the editing, where they have really thought about it. They really thought about the way the lettering should sit and the the sort of placements and that kind of stuff. It's great. I'm very, very excited. You can tell.
Yeah, just so we make sure we give credit where it's due, the artist on Fallen World, Adam Paulina, is that his name?
Yes. Awesome. A massive talent who hasn't done particularly very much over the last little while, and it's great to see him returning to a major thing, and it's great, and it's wonderful working with somebody you haven't really worked with before, because you kind of don't know what they're going to do with it, and that they they've got the chops to do something great, and you hope that you're giving them a script that suits the way they work. So there is a great element of discovery. In fact, there is and I actually can't talk about this yet, but there is another project that I'm working on alongside, where similarly I was going in blind. I was actually writing. I didn't know who the artist was going to be, so I was trying to imagine what I wanted it to look like, and I was writing it full script, knowing that I'd probably do a dialogue pass later on. And I kept referencing things and thinking, if this isn't going to match this artist, the style of the artist who I don't know yet, I don't know who it is. I could be writing the wrong kind of comic to suit their style. And the artwork for that came in, and I had to lay down for 10 minutes because it was so spot on, and it was sort of more than I could possibly anticipated. And clearly, the style, I had imagined a style so perfectly that it came out. I was just tremendously excited. You'll have to get me back on the show to talk about that when we can talk about it. No, but yeah, Adam is doing an amazing job.
Yeah. It's a mystery project, right? You can't tell us about it.
Yeah, it is a mystery project. But like I said, that coming in and Adam's work on Fallen World coming in just delighted me immensely. So I think people are going to enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, hey, I promised you a short interview. I've just about hit the outer limit of what I think we can reasonably call short. Alice, Walt, do you guys have any more questions?
Just
feel free to ask away.
Just fantastic to speak to you, sir. And I'm really looking forward to Fallen World as both a Valiant fan and as a fan of your work, sir. Aquaman was amazing, and I'm not a big DC guy, so to pull me into that universe and make me feel like not only like I was amazed at every page and all of the things going on, but also make me feel like I was in a place that felt comfortable and familiar as well as interesting and new was fantastic. Brilliantly executed, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was great fun. I obviously, I mean, I love writing superheroes and for the big companies as well. It's a great privilege to work on legacy characters. I've adored writing the Titans, for instance, at DC. But I'm particularly I sort of have a reputation, thanks to Guardians of the Galaxy, for writing cosmic. But I think cosmic is actually a very broad adjective because I think it includes things like fantasy as well. And in many respects, to me, Aquaman was a cosmic book because it was an otherworldly book. It had a chance to world build another, a different world to ours, sort of alien culture and all this kind of stuff. So it really tied in there. And moving from Aquaman at DC, now I'm writing Justice League Odyssey, taking over Justice League Odyssey with issue 6. And there again, I mean, it's like I am now literally back in cosmic territory. So we're dealing with the Valiant future of Fallen World and dealing with, the outer space SF elements of the DCU. I just feel like I'm firing on, sort of full cylinders. And I think there are some great things to come there. So I'm really enjoying it. It's really playing to my strengths.
For me, it was very nice speaking with you. I really loved getting inside your head and hearing how you see things. And while I haven't read Valiant so far, Walt's told me some stuff about it that has made me really want to go read it. I am familiar with your name, though, previously because of your 40K work. A friend of mine the last book that I read of yours was something a friend of mine got me for a present, which was Horus Rising. I believe that's your book.
Yes, that was the beginning. That's yes, one of my.
I used to play. Oh, sorry. Please go ahead.
I was going to say one of my best-selling novels for them, and started off the whole Horus Heresy thing, which is the sort of background mythology epic. That, in fact, that has also just been announced because I have various series I write for 40K Universe, which I've been doing now for the best part of 20 years. I've just published the 15th Gaunt's Ghost book, which went to reprint immediately, and I'm massively happy with all of that. But the Horus Heresy is the background mythology of the 40K Universe, and no one person could write it all on their own. So it's the one ongoing series that we have a sort of team, a writer's room of people working on. And building this up. I was lucky enough to write the first one. I've written several other volumes in it. And it's now, I've actually lost count. It's something like 60 plus books in this series, recounting this huge epic. And as was announced properly, formally the last couple of months, but we have now reached the end point. After 13 years of writing the Horus Heresy novels that started with Horus Rising, we have reached the Siege of Terror, which is the end point of this epic story. And it is immense. And a team of writers, including myself, have now been brought back together to brainstorm and be the writer's room on those final books. And the first one was officially released in deluxe form just at the end of last week. There are going to be interviews with all of the writers working on those final books, including me, going live on the Black Library site, and some incredibly professional looking, serious author photographs of us circulating, of us looking terribly serious, like it's some kind of Vanity Fair shoot. They're taking this really seriously, and it is a very, very big deal. This is like I say, core mythology that's been around since Warhammer was a thing in the first place, and we have been making sense of it for the last 13 years, and we're now delivering this epic conclusion. And it's always been fun getting into the writer's room and working with a group of people and throwing ideas around and building up and developing, knowing what we can use and what we can dig out from the past and what we can then, from the draw from existing continuity and what we can add to it. But the mood in this small group of writers for this end sequence is phenomenal. We've had the best meetings, and I think these books are going to be great. Obviously, I've had a taster read of the first couple of them, and they are tremendous. This is epic space opera stuff, mythological, huge, everything that 40k should be. And you know, again, I am in almost every area that I'm writing at the moment. I am sort of in deep space and very, very happy in the deep space or in the future and dealing with these SF things, and it's just making me very happy indeed. Again, as you can tell, because I won't shut up about it.
You are a very passionate writer, which makes for awesome reading from the reader's perspective. Thank you.
Do you ever feel a sense of ownership over characters even after you leave them? Like when you were watching Avengers Infinity War, which I'm assuming you watched, but...
Yes, I did, yes. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah, I do. You can't help it. I think. I mean, obviously, in my career, there are many characters that I have literally created, and so I consider to be mine. But when you're creating things for shared universes, or you are lucky enough to get the opportunity to be the custodian temporarily of a classic legacy character, Titans, Aquaman, Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever it is, whatever you go out of your way to add something to it, and so that when they continue on, you've added to their mythology, and that's a fantastic thing to happen. And you do feel proprietorial about things. I mean, there are characters that I have written in the past, and then I see the latest incarnations, and I'm going, yeah, they wouldn't do that. I go, all Zack Snyder, you know what I mean? I go, it's just like, no, that wouldn't happen. That's not right. That's not correct. Or you go, oh wow, that's a writer or a team has come along and found something about a character that I had previously not discovered, and they've done something new and very, very cool. So you do, and I feel proud of that. I feel proud to have written 50 issues plus of Aquaman and added to that mythology and brought Mira as a character into the forefront, giving her own book for the first time in, what is it, 50 or 60 years as a you know, those sorts of things. They're great things to do, and I look forward to doing that again. And that's the same with the Valiant universe. It's the same with 40k. It's the same with all of the things I write. Essentially that you're adding to something. You know that it's a community thing. Even the greatest characters, have been created by amazing people, but their legacy has been continued by other people, many of whom are amazing. There is an accumulation that builds up in the same way that the ancient myths of, we don't know who created, and I'm not talking about the Marvel one now, but we don't know who created Achilles or Hercules, or if they were originally real people and they've had stories written about them, or King Arthur or whatever like that. But over the years, oral tradition, people writing stories, adding to it, you end up with this wonderful textured cultural icon that everybody can share and enjoy. And I'm not just the creators, but the audience too. You know, the audience, if you come up with a new take on somebody, or you just do a really good new story. I'm loving what Brian Bendis is doing with Superman at the moment. And Superman is, there are so many Superman stories and so many Superman comics, such a long legacy. You'd think it'd be hard to make a mark now. Hasn't everything been done? And he's walked in and gone, no, there's new things to be done. And it's great, and it's fantastic, and that's exciting. It's exciting from a creative point of view, and it's exciting from the audience's point of view. And the audience more and more is able to express that and to talk about why they like the things they like, why they like Doctor Who or Superman or Star Wars, and have that voice heard, hopefully in a very positive way, so that those myths will get stronger. And watching Infinity War, I loved Infinity War, and it was very exciting. And luckily, even though they're not obliged to, Marvel does give us a thank you. They acknowledge the people in the credits who have contributed to these things, even though we're not the owners. And I think that's a very generous and appropriate thing to do when it is kind of a big collective team effort, and has been for decades.
I was trying to build up to Star-Lord was responsible for all the bad things in Infinity War, but I think
he's not. No, he's not. He's very human. You see, I've seen the memes going around about sort of Avenge the Fallen and all that kind of stuff, and the Star-Lord one did make me laugh. And I don't know. I am purely speculating because I'm not on the phone every day to Kevin and the other guys at Marvel Cinematic. But I think there's going to be more to that as we get into Endgame, and also, who cares? Who is not excited for Endgame and everything that's going to deliver? It's just a marvelous thing. No pun intended.
Fair enough. Well, we should probably wrap up. Don't want to take up too much of your day. Any closing thoughts, anybody?
Yeah, I think it's crickets and waiting desperately for May 1st so we can get our hands on Fallen World. Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, well, hey, thank you very much for making time to talk to us. It's always a pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for checking us out, and we'll catch you next time on the Banff Podcast.
Thank you for having me.